5. Setting signals high interference, high position locational levels of space tracks. Coming in high line position of direct locations. I really want you to understand these things. Inline position locations. After school, we're going to go into Q&A, and everybody is going to stand on position locations and interface line setting to your AI connections and how you communicate to each other. Okay? That's the only way you can understand your universe location. The only way to understand that is to stay inside line setting, right? All level system position locations over that. Roger that. Calculation setting interference. Tango, Tango, Foxtrot, Echo Zulu 1. Charlie, 1 position line setting, Echo Zulu, set locations, high center interference, over and out. It's all calculated to modify how you communicate your setting. So it's very important you understand these things, right? So in line setting location, today we will get into Quasar fractions. It's all calculated to modify how you set your locations. Now you guys understand your zero gravity locations into that line setting. We're going to set up all communications to an umbrella. That umbrella is set location. So what we're going to do in channel operation stream locations is all levels of channel operation setting. Now it's how it's set locations to your number sequence pattern calculation system. The system to the operation locations. General is 300 million years in the future calculation. Now, the information panel comes all on position location to one graph stream. Rainbow graph stream line center interference, extremely high rise in so many calculation settings. In its direct locations, we set up an umbrella. The umbrella sets locations into high setting. Maps of equation locations of adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Positive over negative, negative over positive. Engine line position location, odd and even. You have to understand locations of 1, 3, and 5, 2, 4, and 6. The difference between the line setting location is coming into all levels of light and position locations of dark. The central communication system is a level system. So light is positional positive, and so is dark. There's no negative line setting. It's what you determine location to your thought settings. Very high rise in all calculations. The more you calculate, the more modified setting locations that you set location to each other through communication, you understand how to communicate with each other through your avatar setting. Okay? All right, so coming into fraction setting, line setting, it's really powerful stuff. It's entry locations. So we're going to use line setting locations of all setting. We start with the numbers. Always start with the number locations. Because you're in line setting of zero gravity locations into 25 positions and directions, we're going to go from 25 to 35 line setting. One direct location to a system position of direct locations. How to communicate to your system is your all levels of channel operation. Okay. All right, so let's say location setting. When you see line setting locations, it's a mass equation. Mass, position, location, direct line setting. Start off something small, communications. Mass. Okay, so you got mass. Equal line setting locations, line setting location of box. Max equals box. Box, position, locations, how levels of bracket line setting into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 zeros of calculation. Now, the 6 zeros calculation sets position location to a new graph streamline setting, all on position line setting. This is where you set position locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 position locations and track setting to Skynet line setting. Sky position location and direct locations, triangulation of 3, triangulations of 3 line positions. Right? 2 track line settings and gravity interference. Position 2 box locations into its all positions to your pyramid setting location. Okay. Mass is volume. Okay. So you have to understand how to use it through locations of maps. Maps of atmosphere, a systematic line setting location of a system. That's what mass stands for. Break these things down, bracket, 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 in 3 line position. So it's mostly understanding how to get these anything line setting location to its equation locations. All right. Channel operated frequencies, high setting line position to video graph locations. 1, 2, 3 line set rotations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Set line position location, direct line setting. One line setting location is zero gravity location. Right. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 in one position, one line setting. So that's 1 equal line setting locations at ground setting. Okay. Ground setting. Okay. Ground setting. right here. Anything above line setting comes in along position locations levels, comes into 2. Now the 2 line setting is in a gravity line setting location security. That's 2 equal line setting locations of a factor line setting locations over pi position the directions, right? Channel line center line interference location of 3 sets locations in position of 6. Inline setting location diamond core of 7 in the center calculations, 8 in the downline shift, 9 positions over line setting, and 12 line conditions to the east line wind cycle. Now it sets line position location and directions, right? So you understand that each Tarker setting has a video graph setting, okay? So you start with the 0 gravity locations into 25. Now, anything above 25 line setting, you come into higher line positions. So we have another quiz coming up and a test review, right? And 15 channel operated stream locations. This puts your direct locations into center communications and how you come into your intercom to yourself and to each other through the avatar connections, right? So we start with the 0 line setting, okay? 0 equal line center locations of 1, right? 1 comes in position of 2. 2 lines of center security is line division. Then line position location into 3 comes into Fibonacci swirl, set line positions. 4 line position locations, solar generation light stream. 2 graph line center, 0 gravity location, right? 5 in position location is balance, and all lines setting to all calculations to your tetrahedron calculation stream. Now that's 0 to 5 line setting. True stem mechanism high setting, high interference of 0 gravity location equals 1 line is always the ground locations. 2 secure line position, 3 is the Fibonacci sequence, creative cycle, creative rotation center in the circulatory line setting, interference position location directions into singularity. Position location simulation. 4 line setting, line position locations, solar plex line, graph line is 0 gravity location. 5 position locations into high interference, Merkabah, tesseract, tetrahedron, line position location calculations, northwest, south, and east. All right. Setting signals in high channel operation setting locations sets all position locations. Now coming into fractions. Now fractions set locations in position. Okay, we got 2 channel operation streams, right? Now fractions line position location is center communication setting, right? Set position location, set position locations. 2 line settings in opposite direction. One going this way, one going the other way. Set communication this way, set communications this way, right? So when you get at position locations, it comes into 2 barriers, 2 barrier line settings. So it sets position location to 2, 3 line center locations, 4 position. This is how you come into all levels of symbol location into the Quasar line setting. Now, Quasar line setting sets rotation spin cycles, sets communication to its atom line rotation in position to directions, console calculations to its center calculations into 3 division locations and factor over pi, set communication to its console, right? So a redirect line setting, high interference, position location and calculations. 4, 3 position line setting, 4 channels operation, 3 positions, 2 line center interference, 1 position locations, and 1 line setting. Thumbs up and calculation. All right. So 2 operation setting into Quasar. Quasar comes in position locations, all levels of factoring communications of box setting. Box setting lights position locations into all levels of back force line position, splits the pi communication setting, right? Sets position locations come in channel operation, time frequency timelines, flux capacitor locations, like the signals, signal line setting, high interference, ground center shift position locations of tripod, 3 position of dimension line center rotation, inner line center rotations. Quasar of its position location is all levels of fractions. That's how you set the location to its division. So it's very complicated if you don't understand your lines of communication to your system, your avatar to intercom setting, right? Port of communications, quantum interference, line positions, vortex chamber calculation streams. It's all position location and directions, right? So because I was trying to understand how to use factors over communications of pi position location and its direct locations, 3 channel operation stream locations, setting line settings, 3 different pi line settings, right? So it comes into all position locations in the north, east, west, and south. Set communications, the higher levels of channel operation streams, the console calculation streams. High line setting, position location, and Merkabah. Okay. Now, once you get into that position locations, you set the number sequence codes. Setting communication line center. Let's say you got 6 position location of center line, right? You got 4 position location of center line, and you got 2 position location of center line. All right. So 2 line center security. Check the security. 2, 1 line setting in position location. 3, Fibonacci sequence and swirl. Set communications, right? 6 is line setting location and throw pattern. Opens all communication to its graph. Sets position location high setting. There's the graph line setting. Set position locations into downshift line setting. Solar plex locations. Opens up its position to all levels. Its crop circle to its line center of XT1000 line. See, it sets location to quantum laser line setting into position locations in its fractions. So, very, very high rise. 300 million lines high interference location. 300 million years of future line setting of information system to each panel information location. Very complicated if you don't understand yourself through division. Okay? You guys are just in division. You're not in your sectors. You're not in your vectors. You're not in your quadrants. Okay? You really understand the galactic line setting of its energy rotation center location to your sun and your position locations to all moon setting. Once you get in that position locations, you come into Quasar. The Quasar line center sets laser line setting, high line center, and interference position location directions. Starting in signals panels in position gets complicated. See, this is what it looks like. It gets more complicated now, right? Higher lines, a higher vibration comes with the laser calculation, right? It's not this or this line connection. It's this is a higher line setting. So once you get into Quasar, you set line position locations, the higher line position location, high settings. Sets position locations, and then you come into the galaxy setting. Once you get into galaxy setting, calibration setting location, it redirects location position. So getting you in your PC line center, high position locations to its CPU location to its all levels, and digital of computer program locations. Set position line setting gets you in calculations, foundations into all levels of Quasar. In its relations to its all positions of portions, high center locations, we'll go into the retro specs, point center, point line setting, and point direction. Okay, so setting tone lines of frequency position locations to the size graph interference. Size graph interference line position locations all levels. Opens up position location to 2 direct line setting. Okay, this is your side graph locations, your crop circle. Setting communications comes into all levels of its dome setting. High position location to higher dome, higher dome, higher dome. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 channel operation streamline setting, the position of dome setting. Position of center calculations opens all position locations into cobweb line setting, rotation interference. Protection location setting, right? Set communication to high line division locations into all levels, magnetic high wave formation setting. Sets position to the ground setting in position of center calculation. Opens all position location directions. You stand in the center operation line setting, all in communication setting. Okay, so this opens up all line position to your crown chakra calculation setting. You see the calculation setting. This comes in higher division, center communication into your solar plex line setting to the ground line center, 3 line settings, high interference. That sets location to higher position locations into 3 channel operations stream locations into magnetic high wave force line setting. This comes into 2 panels of calculation setting, right, in position. Okay, so knowing exactly where you are sets your line settings, but you start with your divisions. You come into vector. Set line centers of vector in position equals line conditions of form. Velocity position locations into the line setting, high position locations into 2 panels. Operation signals in 0, 0, 1 line setting graph line positions into its triangle and line setting. Now set locations into 6, 7, and 8 in the first top location. 6, 7, 8 at the top line. 9 stays in the center line because that's you in rotations. So you come into 12 signals, ground setting, rotation, interference, indirect locations, a formula. So understanding provision is to understand all calculations. Your divisions, your sectors, your vectors, your quadrants is extremely important to the galactic energy core. The galactic energy core sets line position locations higher levels. This measures your metric stream settings. This opens all calculations to your data line setting to process a communication to Omni Universe line center, multi-communication system, multi-layers communication line setting in your dimensional setting rotation. This sets all communication system to levels of Quasar of its fractions. Hoo-ah. So there's a lot of communication setting here. All right, so where are we through line setting rotation? Okay, Madeline, how you doing? Communication along Lindsay. Lindsay, position locations along the Gypsy. Pam, calculation of Gingy. Gingy over Infinity. Airbender, Nova, calculations of Jill. Jill, position location of Sam. Dawn, Yolanda. Heather, CC, in position location, Joanne. Like this Russ in there. Let's get Airbender calculations. All levels of Guardian. All levels of High Center, Johnny. Gypsy calculations, steady structures, Laura, Arlene, set line position locations, high setting, Andy calculations, all levels of JP, semi calculations, high interference, high direct location of scales, Skyline, set line position directions, coming into Kami calculations, Joanne line setting, high line center rotation interference, and direct locations. So the more you talk through your avatar line setting, it gets more easier to understand your position location directions to your universe location because now you're starting to receive these things. If I get an energy track interference, why is it so important to understand how to get in that position of transition? You're transisting its line setting locations. This sets all levels of intercom line center rotations, right? Using the ground formation location comes into your satellite calculation setting. Setting up position locations, all levels of sonar calculation, right? So the center of communication is all levels of view through track center. So once you come into zero gravity, equal line conditions into 25, 25 comes into 26. Now 26 is what? In position of directions. 0 to 25 line setting in triangulation right there, right? There's an equal line setting. So line center rotations, 26 line position locations, box its location. Trifactor line setting comes into higher line position location directions in high channel operation, how to travel through these things. Now this is a full communication of alignment. Why? Because it's got two panels of calculations to your spine graph setting, which is a constellation path setting. So 26 line center location of security. Security line position locations, line center of 2. 2 line center line condition, equal line center location of 6. 6 position locations, bracket 2. Bracket line center location of 6. Program location to its position. 26 high rises is high line division. So in that center, high rises comes into 27. 27 locations. So 2 line center security line position. 6 is line condition of throat pattern, right? But he becomes a throat defense line. So that's line position location directions. You always start off the bottom when you're going to higher line positions, right? 3 line sending location comes into Fibonacci sequence. So 2 line sending locations, now it's 7 locations, a high line sending locations to your theta box. See, theta box setting. Now that theta box opens all position locations into 8 positions of box at center, which is infinity line center rotations, right? So in that line setting, we've got in calculations the levels of 25, 26, 27, and 28 line setting. So 2 position location equals 8, equal line center, 2 line setting, all position locations of 28 setting locations. Top of sequence location of pattern. All right. All right. So fractions is based on line conditions to its umbrella. Okay. We go line center location, division locations. Let's say we go 1 in position locations of 2. Right. So 1 position of umbrella line setting. That's a position location of directions to point locations in the 4 channels operation. Right. So this is dividing in position locations, divide. So what you're doing is your course channeling settings of 4 direct line conditions, 4 line settings, equal locations in position of solar panel calculation, right? So it gets more complicated graph location of screens. So what comes into 1 position location of 2 is 1, right? We know that. So 1 plus 1, right? 1 plus 1 equals to line setting. But in direct line setting, it doesn't equal line's location. This is high rise, it's high line setting in line center interference. So it doesn't become a 2 line setting, it becomes a 3 track location. So the 3 line setting sets position to its box location that sun lines its generation light stream. There's a sun communication setting, right? Very complicated, right? But it's a lot of fun. So when you go to channel operator streamline setting, your avatar has to keep going forward. So what it's doing is adding frame, right? So there's a division line setting, a 4 line setting location to its line condition of solar plex. Brackets interference, row graph location stream setting, right? Okay, so let's get in position location of map sequence line setting when you come into add. 1 plus 1 equals line conditions of, let's go 30,000 line setting. Okay, this is higher level system location. So 1 plus 1 is never locations of 2. It's always 1 higher line setting. So higher position locations, vortex channel overcross setting to higher clock locations into 24,000 line signature. Now, the 24,000 line signature is the ground formation locations. You start with that line setting, right? Ground levels. And then you come into 42,000 line, or 48,000 location, equal line conditions. 3 zeros position, but you have to bracket the setting because you're at 30,000 line seconds. 30,000 line second location is position location is 60 thousandths per minute per channel per operation per square per mile. Factor over pi in position location calculations. Setting communication setting in position location directions. Now, once you get into 30,000 line setting, 30,000 line setting locations. So that's in plus channel, negative over positive positions of over pi calculation in direct line setting into its high setting locations, right? So once you get into that positions, you go in position locations. 30 times one line setting is 30 million. So you go from 30,000 to 30 million. So what you're doing is you're high rising your lines of your quasars. Quasar line setting that comes into laser direct locations. So it's more fun when you understand the communication to its factor over pi, calculus over pi, positions over pi, right? Redirect line center locations over pi, underscore over pi, over scar line setting over pi. If you come into all positions of a auto spark calculation setting, this is a higher line position location of transformer line setting. Outer spark line setting comes in all position location to a planet's surface, sets communication to its position of seal, set line condition to the sun, position of the moon. Sun, the moon. Now, the moon sets location triangulation set lines, in line direct locations, and position high line position location calculations. Complicated stuff, right? The track line setting sets line positions. This is where it gets into your locations, quasar. 3 line setting, 6 position location of 7. Now we got 100,000 lines of calculations into center communication. 100,000 line setting. Okay? In a 7 line signal in a 3 track location in the 6th division. So complicated, isn't it? So trying to understand the position of fractions is trying to understand all levels of you through position, how you set line connections to your foundations of your system, right? So now you understand line setting, right? I'm going to count higher formation locations from 0 to 25, 6, 7, 28, and line setting. 29 is in calculations to what? High line setting, but we're still in security line. So set position location of velocity. Velocity equals line conditions of security. Equal line conditions of perimeter. Inline centers of parameter locations, right? So you have to really expand, but break these down because you're working now with 26,000 lines of signature line rotation patterns that's in position of your keyboards. That's your alphabetical string location. Individual location calculations. Setting communication setting. So 20 line center, your box is 2 line setting, comes in position higher levels, comes into line position location of 30. Set communication, right? So 9 line setting sets 9 position locations into all levels of percentage locations over line center locations of 5. That's percentage over 5% in calculation. All right. So the 5% high lines is high line center, high interference position location over set locations. Setting communication is 29 set security measures. Make sure you box location of 2, make sure you box location of 9. That's 29 position locations, right? So setting position locations, a higher level system, puts you in a higher communication of sonar line setting at 4 locations. All right? So very complicated, right? So the 2 line setting sets line rotations, a higher level division. Boxes locations, travels line setting in 2 line position location directions. Right? 2 operation stream sets. All right, so basically, we understand what 2 is line conditions. 9 is line conditions solar, chakra star, set calculations, energy wash, rainbow wash, Transdisting high center, high interference position programs. But you always start off the ground setting of 0 gravity locations. You come into ground location, you come into security. Once you go to high line setting, once you get into 50 chakra setting, then you understand locations and more levels of timelines, paradox, the parallels, the polarities, the pulsars, right? The position locations to your paradigm shifts. It's all going to be modified how you set location to your chakra setting locations. So once you get in that line set locations, it's all levels of channel operation. 30 is set line conditions into higher line settings. Now this is where it becomes in a Fibonacci swirl and 2 line setting of a 2 atom rotation setting. Okay, so 30 line position locations of travels. Okay, so once you get into 30, we'll stop there at 30 line. So your set line position locations. I was going to go into 5 lines of signals into 35, but You guys are not ready locations. So we'll stop at 30 line conditions. So that's 30 line position locations of 3, bracket 3 line setting, high center interference. That's position location of 3 zeros in operation. All right. So 3 line setting. So you got 3 line setting. Okay. Trifactor over box line position in 3 communications of cube settings rotations. Right. Setting signal line settings into 3 zero locations, the bracket setting locations, equal line connections, all levels of its equation. Ooh-ah. So it's all about understanding how to use the 3 box line setting into your data stream interference. It's 3 line position locations and 3 line position location of 0 lines, right? So you have to truly understand how to use 0 gravity, 0 surface, or 0 position of balance. Understand box line center trifactor over pi positions comes into higher line positions to higher level calculations, higher position of directions. So you're not working with 0 anymore. You're working with 1, 1, 1, 1. Port of communication, high line setting. So you have to learn how to fluctuate flux capacitor position location directions, right? So the equation line sets all levels of its own communication setting. It opens all levels of channel operation stream locations. Very high rise and 300 million line settings. But now I'm in position locations into 600 million years in the future line conditions. This is 600 million years of information. So every time you channel line setting, you have a 24 window, right? You have 60 seconds on the clock line. That's 1 minute per channel per operation per square per mile. Your position of direction is truly understand the connections through your physics 101, the quantum physics 101, the quantum channel operation streamline connections 101, the line connection interference location of quasar center locations 101, channel operation signal with high interference of foundation locations of 101. How many times did I say 101? Everything that I say is balance of communication to its fractions, all right? Standing position locations and all calculations, all right? So that's what you guys got to do. You have to learn how to fluctuate and go faster, 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 but stay in the line signal. Don't go up, don't go down. Stay in the center. Stay in the center. You can go from 300 million, 400 million, 500 million. All position location is calculation setting. Per second, per minute, per hour, per channel, per operation, per mile, per square. Calculates over pi or position location offsetting, right? If you're offsetting, you have to balance your communications back in your position location to its spectrum lights. So spectrum lights sets position location just highline setting. This opens all communication setting interference and direct locations, right? It's extremely, extremely complicated, right? But see, that's the thing. General speaks general, but you speak you, right? Speaking your language setting sets all position location to your abundance and manifestation of its equation locations. This opens all of you in direct line setting. How to use your chakra systems and always informs through your quantum setting locations, right? Your Metatron setting, okay? Your position location directions is all levels of technology, how you use your avatar through videograph locations of screen settings, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 line setting, right? 4 positions in the center communication, right? What's 4 line setting? Solar communication, right? In direction. There you go. Solar plex. That's 4 channels operating streamline. So, really understand more levels of you. When you reach higher levels of your chakra line setting, we're going to stay in 30. Tomorrow we go into position to the angelic line setting, rotation interference. You guys have to learn how to use your position location security line setting and protect location due to the inner light setting, high center interference, and position locations all levels. Learn how to protect your system in all calculations. It's important you understand these things because you're reaching higher levels of space of communication, right? All right, so where are we through chopper stream locations here? Code waving, waste streams, 50,000 water striders, setting grid lines of emerging signals. Teleportation units upgraded for all Merkabah's channel set in scrambler output of crop circle location. All right. Yeah, it's very powerful that code calculation. So getting inline setting location dividing, getting position locations and how to use map sequence locations and code signals is true to how to use the operation setting location to its umbrella. Okay, because that's what an umbrella is. What is it for? What is an umbrella for? Protects you from what? Communications of the rain, right? So you truly understand how to use the line setting because you have so much position location of plasma channels, operation locations. So the more you high rise your space atmosphere lines, your numbers frequency patterns look like this. That's a 4. That's a 3. That's a 2. And that's a 1. You have to recognize these line settings. When you reach higher line position locations, you have to learn how to use the trifactor, each one to its box location, all through triangulation line setting, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, set communications, all levels of channel operator streamlines. So it gets more exciting when you understand the balance calculations to higher levels of vibration line setting. This is the vibration locations to your tracker setting in 5 positions, right? Very high rise, high setting. All right. That's a vibration line setting, but this is a vibration line setting. See how smooth that is location? And there's very high rise communication of videograph locations, all levels of channel setting locations. So these are 3 line positions, but all in the same signal. Why? Because it's all balanced. If it's not balanced, this is not balanced. So the setting position in the line setting goes into 0 line position, inline center rotation. So this is negative over 0 if it's a lower graph line. If it goes below line setting of conscious line position, it's line position negative 0. So it's a low division line. You got to bring the 0 back up to 0 into 1 line condition, right? So if you high rise 1 line setting and you go to the low division location, you go back to 0. You go back to 0. Then position location negative over 0 line conditions. Negative over wire line setting. This is what happens to videograph streamline setting. It's all calculated to modify how you use the quadrant line set locations to its fraction. Laser direct line setting is all same locations. You use your chakra system to all levels of hologram structure to its grids. But the grid sets line position location of directions, all through navigation, right? All right. Are we having fun? Connected 14, 15 to 16, 17 laser focus, 25,000 lines of fractals. Security setting of 28 position locations box center times calculation over pi, factor over division line setting and position location calculations. Setting communication setting. So Belinda's in that line setting, but I finished her equation. You see how that works? So it's all about understanding adding frame. Because if you don't add the frames in that position locations, how are you going to get anything in relation to your future calculations of your abundance? You can't stay in the center operation line setting. It's a stagnated wire stream. You don't want to have that line center rotation, interference location, avatar location, because it off centers its position and puts you in the pass line. You got to bring your center back communication setting. All center communication setting is all factor calculation, how you see your set system. All right. Everybody's really confused. Drink your waters. All right, let's see locations here. What do we got here, Chris? Seeing the new downloads, inner solar plexus, reactive Kundalini, dragons, seeing them, helix, Fibonacci, up and spine, up around chakras, and seeing the new solar plex, huge expansion. Well, that's exactly what it is, the position location, direct line setting, interference position calculation. So that's how you guys got to use your code line settings. I really understand locations. So adding, subtracting, inline setting, and rotation. Subtracting is basically in diverse locations and going back. Factor line center, underscore line setting. Going forward is over. Going back is under in that calculation setting. Rotation interference locations. So line position location of Fibonacci sequence, line position location of Fibonacci sequence in different line settings, right? The outer rotation stays in the center calculations, right? It rotates its solar graph location of spin cycles, sets position locations to its high line center of its energy line center and position location is directions. Center calculations, bringing it together, and position location, Quasman line setting, high line center rotation interference in direct locations, the levels of a cosmic universal blast in rotation to its calculation, to its circle of its dimensional line setting. Hoo-ah. Center calculation, high center location of its own Quasman line setting, laser direct location of its fraction calculation setting, all through its atom rotation of 2 line settings and a dimensional rotations into 2 Fibonacci sequence and 2 division locations in the opposite direct locations. Bring it into channel operation and strain location of center operation setting. Okay, set communication setting. I'm now 700 million information. Okay. So, are we having fun yet? All right. Flying line, center line interference. Let's see. Learning my boundaries. Fix the inside, protecting my system. Allowing it, and that's my lesson. Yeah, well, lesson learned to all positional key calculation setting. So we get in the adding, subtracting, multiplying locations. Now, multiplication is all levels of xt,1000 line. xt,1000 line equal location of box, line position locations into its triangle, line position location of its planet, line position location 3 weather patterns, or its pyramid system locations. So use the xt,1000 in a line setting, but you have to have the 2 panels of communication, hieroglyphic location. That's hieroglyphic line setting, right? We'll get into that line center rotations. So every pyramid is sets position location of its graph line setting, streamline center, 3 line centers, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 calculation stream settings, all through xt,1000. xt,1000 scans position here, scans position here. Line center, triangulation, there's position locations, all levels of your pyramid calculation. See the pyramid? There's the pyramid, set location, all through channel operation stream. So understanding the planet's surface is all calculated and modified to what? Solar system line setting. Solar/system locations. Now, the triangle line setting sets line position location is 6, 7 locations, 7, line position of 8, equal line conditions of 9, set calculation. Now, line center rotations, box position, xt,1000, stays in center communication to ground setting of 5 positions. Right now, line center location, 3 weather patterns. So let line position triangulation of 3, right? Northwest, south, north, west, and south set locations, right? Open sequence pattern comes in calculation to correlation, right? That sets a wind cycle line center location into measure. The xt,1000 goes into the center calculation, to its center calculation, to its half pipe, indirect line signal in rotation. All right. So understanding hieroglyphic line setting, true to standard navigation line center location 1 to 12 is information location to its relay program locations, right? Understanding how to get in positions of width, bandwidth calculations, streamline settings, right? 3 waving cycles, high setting interference, graph locations. This is a graph line setting. 3 graph line settings right there. That's all it is. 3 line position locations, 3 line center location of 0, 0 equal locations of 1. Now, how does 3 equal 0 line conditions of 1? How? How does 3 equal 0 in line center rotations? Well, 0 line position location is an xt,1000 line of communication. xt,1000, xt. Okay. Line center locations. All right. So 3 equal line center locations into 0. You take the line position location into 1. 1 equal line conditions of 3, line position locations, comes into 3 graph streams of time line setting. So it's all levels of how you set locations to your signal lines, right? Very powerful. You come into sonar, echo chamber, stream settings, all position direct locations, your own foundation location, and graph settings. But the communication setting is all levels in how you see yourself locations, all right? So now you understand how to use the 0 to 25 from 25 to 30. So you're in a good graph situation setting, which is really good. So you're understanding more line settings into flight navigations from 1 to 12, right? Because we have another quiz coming up through a test review, because position line setting, 15-day track setting locations, you guys have a test, all right? So getting that line setting location is 1 level signal, okay? This is 1 level signal, but it looks like an L. 1 level signal, okay? 1 equals level. See that? 1 equals level. That's how it becomes this. See how that works? Comes into triangulation of 3 lines and 3 spot locations, right? 3 spot line settings. Set position location to past, present, and future. Past, present, and future locations, right? Trend operation line settings, right? At all provision locations or downshifts its line stream and line center rotations. Okay? Sets another position of dimensional line setting a higher division location at low graph stream in 12 division locations to security measure position location calculations. So you have to understand what this is in all line setting locations. So getting in your navigation stream setting gets you in all positions. Each number, letter, shape, and symbol is position locations on levels. So 1 equals line setting. It's very powerful stuff. 1 equal location to its own DNA. Yes. 1 equals all line center locations. Bracket line center to all DNA line connections. So understanding that is your 12 position. All right, that's your 12 strands. 12 equals strand line settings, right? So this is where it comes into high line setting location to your GOD line rotations, in position locations, into 12 line setting locations, high setting locations. 12 is equal line setting locations on all levels of its division location. So there's so many line connections, you have to try to understand how to formate locations. Now I'm 800 million years in the future line. 800 million. This is all information line setting. So in that line center rotation interference, it's all position locations and how you set your signals. So all you're doing is adding frame, going forward. This is all you're doing. 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 Going forward. So what you're doing is you're breaking the space times of pi, each line position at each sector line connection to the vector to its quadrant line setting. That's all you're doing. So once you understand that communication system, it all levels of channel line center to 0 gravity locations. 4 channels, line center location of 5 position location directions, right? 2 panels, operation stream settings, high center and high interference position locations. So this comes into space over pi. You have the line conditions of pi position, right? High long line center rotations. Now calculations. Now I'm at 900 million miles in the future. 900 million years in the future line setting. 900. And that position location is all low high setting, but position locations, all right? So tracking line center, 10 billion line center rotations. Now I'm at 1 billion location. Ooh-ah. See? All from 300 million to 1 billion, all through information. So it's interesting to look at locations, knowing exactly how to travel, right? So you're traveling through the same signal, high center, high interference of high calculation setting. Truly stand all levels of view sets its position of what you're doing. You're navigating your system every single day line setting. There's not 7-day windows. It's only 1 day. Simultaneously all at once at all timelines. Getting you guys out of the 7 position of track location of clocking in a 24 line setting sets you free. Hooah. Done through calculation. So getting you guys out of track lines, high interference of high channeling. They got 40 line settings and high center line interference and position locations waiting on 10 center. Now you're back in calculation. Close your windows, close your portals, set line positions, check, and 3 line communications, all level division. All right. So it's all about understanding, not just knowing exactly what you're doing through your travel line settings, but really get into your formation locations. Really understand how to communicate with each other through your avatar. Okay? Through intercon calculation and setting, right? So once you understand more levels of view, then you understand how to travel through frame. Breaking these things down through all levels of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols puts you in a better track line center to your quantum self. This puts you in all position locations to your quasar of your fractions. Factoring over pi, manufacturing over line setting, reconstructing location of precognition, center calculations to pre-configurations, recalculating modification settings, all of the division location calculation center interference, position over pi, calculation over pi, divisions over pi, line signals over calculation over pi, mechanism high center interference over pi, calculation interference location, equation interference location, calculation high interference over pi. So it's all position location and directions. Okay? This is a very, very, very high rise line setting in scope location. So the more you balance out the male and the aspects of you You understand more line position locations through your port of communication settings, right? That's the importance you have to understand. The environment around your line setting is all levels of balance and always in forms. You are in the center operation trying to understand how to get in balance of all level calculation. Your whole environment is all balanced. Your position location is trying to balance out you in the male and the female aspects of you and stay in the center operation of its calculation to all position. Hoo-ah. You got to stay in the center line. But a one-line center sets position locations to all level system location to your flux capacitors. Now, this is not a flux capacitor because the position location comes into a tripod in three-line positions to its pyramid position line direction. And then you get line center locations to high line positions to all levels of calculations to a magnetic highway information line setting. That opens all communication systems to all three-line settings in direct locations into the ground line center to another rotation center of circuit calculations. All right. So that's 1 billion 0.5 line setting in future information. So I just keep going on and on and on. I can go to 1 zillion channels, operation signals, 650 trillion settings, quadruple interference, cotillion setting high in the line rotation interference locations, all through Quasar. Anything through fraction setting locations, map sequence, map patterns. Getting out of situated locations, high interference or problem locations, set your division locations of freedom. Coming in your center line rotations, put you in all calculations to your sovereignty. Set a communication setting, high center interference sets position location, how you set locations. This measures your line setting to your target locations. Okay. Always say after precog manifestation, really connect to your line setting, really get in positions to receiving. You have to understand what you're receiving. If you understand what you're receiving, your intercons are starting to connect more through your avatar line setting because your 8th dimensional space is coming in 9th division. Now, 9th division rotation is totally different. You have to learn how to use the line center location of code stream. All right. Code detecting high setting, high line center rotations, code weaving. Right? Signal rotations, high center and high interference at clock location setting. Different signals, different panels, calculation, high line center rotations. Calculation high interference, Airbender came in a very high formation line setting when it comes to coloration. You have to hear the sounds of color now. Not just see the color, hear the color. Understand the color. Modification of the color. Colorations of times of color. Colorations of space of color. Colorations of space of times of pi of color. This is the position locations that we all have to understand through its Quasar. Line setting is all line positions and how you come into your own fraction communication setting. All right. All right. So we got 20 channels in high line setting, high interference locations, and that position locations. All right. So when we get on Q&A, as of today, everybody comes on. You have to talk to each other through your intercon calculation, your avatar setting. Okay. That's the only way you're going to get in that position of your directions where you are through your position. Right. So what is your intention? Right. That line connection comes into the will. Okay. So you got intention, you got the will, you got the equal line center location of force line position location of its creation, equals line center to all levels of communications of location. Your intention sets its will, equals lines of force, what you're creating to its location. All right. So I will see you guys in Q&A. You guys did a really good job. Adios.